Hello there and welcome to another interesting episode of the Candid Talk here on Herman Manyora's YouTube channel. Of course, I'm so glad that you've joined us yet for another informative and insightful episode for that matter. As usual, we're here with Professor Herman Manyora. Prof, how are you?
Good.
Yes. As usual, the old professor looks spick and span, so to say.
Yeah. Kabisa.
How was your weekend?
Wonderful.
Definitely.
Yeah, we thank God. Yes.
I see political temperatures are not cooling down anytime soon.
Yes.
And I saw you tweet on Twitter actually saying that the current regime has not actually realized that they are in government and they're still in the campaign mode. Why did you say that?
Yeah, but it's obvious. They don't appear to me to be people aware that they are now government. They are fighting imaginary enemies and creating some in the process. Like what the Gachagua says, you just act, you don't talk about it. Yeah.
Now, of course, that forms the basis of our conversation today. Let's begin with actually quoting whatever it is that the Deputy President, Rigathi Gachagua, said at that time while at a rally in Kericho. Now, this government is like a company. Let me just read this. Guaranteed by shares. There are those with many shares and those with few shares. Therefore, those who voted for us and supported us must enjoy the benefits first. Prof, what do you make of the Deputy President's sentiments?
First of all, he's right. And I like Gachagua. He's authentic. He's real. He says the truth without dressing the truth. He says what most of us would want to say, but because we want to talk right and sound right, we don't say it. So to that extent, what he's saying is actually just true. That across the world, when the people campaign for power and they get power, they form government with the people who think like them. People who believe in their philosophies, in their manifestos, in their ideologies. You can't invite strangers to run government with you. Why are you fighting for it? So what Gachagua is saying is right. It happens across the world.
What do you mean by strangers?
Yeah, if you are saying let us move east and somebody say let us move west, the two of you are strangers to each other. Yeah.
So are you trying to say that we are not going to draw that line between political ideologies and those things that people do actually say during campaigns and so on and so forth, and what is actually on the ground?
Well, I don't understand what you mean.
Like, what I mean is this. We already passed the election period. Whoever supported you, whoever did not support you, that was then, and you're already in power. Why then would you now carry that burden all along and then come and
If I got Gachagua right, he's saying forming government. When a president comes with a new administration, he creates an infrastructure composed of men and women to help him implement that which he campaigned for. You want the power to be able to take the country in a certain direction. So when you get power, you are given an opportunity to constitute government. That infrastructure you call government, from cabinet ministers, principal secretaries, members of boards, members of board, of parastatal, and so on. All these CEOs, chairmen, ambassadors, these are men and women to help you run government. Okay? They cannot be strangers.
If there is anything to go by, Prof, judging by how we are right now as a country, of course, this is a diverse country, we have several communities and so on. When you look at the kind of political structure that we have in the country right now, there are a number of regions, especially the Nyanza, or you may talk a little bit of Western, or rather, let me just call them Raila Odinga's stronghold, of which all these people are behind the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, and therefore you wouldn't expect them to get these jobs that the Deputy President is talking about. So my problem is this. Why is it that people do always push how many of our people have been given these positions? And then how then would that perhaps translate to the development agenda at the end of the day?
You know, our constitution stupidly says that we must have regional representation. And therefore you expect Luos to be in that government. But the question is it true that you can only find a Luo in ODM?
Of course, that's not true.
It's not true. There are Luos who are neutral, like the late Magoha. If you wanted somebody to run education and you kept Magoha there, he's not Jubilee, he's not ODM, he's not UDA. So there's a neutral Luo. a capable, neutral Luo. There are people who are not ODM. They are UDA and they are Luos. So it's not difficult to form government with the face of Kenya from among people who supported you. Yes.
Now, a number of people would say, okay, now if that is the case, that you only give these jobs to those who supported you, then these other regions are going to feel a little bit neglected. Why is it that, why would you come up and tell everybody to pay tax, everybody to do everything, but when it now comes to the cake and everybody, we are supposed to be sharing the national cake, then it only goes to the few?
Let me put it very simply this way. What I have in mind is a government infrastructure, what they call the president's man. When you become the president of a country, you take over government with your people. The other president goes with his men. Those are the people I'm talking about. And if that's what the Gachagua is talking about, there's nothing wrong. Let's take the simplest example, cabinet. You cannot form cabinet with strangers. No. You form cabinet with like-minded people. People who think the way you think. People who want to drive in the same direction with you. You can't form cabinet with other people who you want to pull this way and they are pulling that. How will you run government? Let me now explain the two problems, if you allow me. The first problem is tact. First problem is
Tact.
Gachagua lacks tact. You don't pronounce it because you breed resentment. That's why we are now discussing it. You just do it. These are not things you go on the rooftop, climb on a tree and say, we shall only appoint UDA people. No, you just appoint. So the mistake he makes is to shout about it. Therefore, he's not tactful. He's not a smart politician. Okay? Much as I admire his authenticity, politics is about knowing how to communicate. How not to say what, or how to say what, and when to say it. In whose presence, for whose attention. If you don't know those things, you'll make a very bad politician. That's why now they are giving Raila Odinga the folder. Now in the meetings, Raila is going to say, you see now these people are saying this is a company. Hii ni kama ng'ombe ya mama yao. This is kama ng'ombe ya nyumbani. Watakamua mama ndio watakamua peke yake, jirani hawezi kamua. You see? This is a company. How can you say a company? You know, but what he's saying was true, but he put it wrong. That's the first thing. The second thing is we must distinguish between political positions and the public service positions, those civil service. Now, what Ruto is doing, which is wrong, is to end people's careers by terminating their contracts in order to give his men, and I'm writing about it in the Nairobi Review, I think tomorrow, it will come out tomorrow, Nairobi Review website. You get somebody who has his 3-year contract. He has nothing to do with your politics. Then you terminate and put somebody, that's wrong.
No, then
because now Ruto is going to the civil service, the structure that runs government. Political governments can come and go after every 5 years, 4 years in America, sometimes in where there's parliamentary democracy, like in UK, 3 governments in 7 months. In 7 months or 7 weeks, 3 governments gone, come and go. Serikali inakuja inaamka. But the civil service ensures the country moves smoothly. So long as you do not interfere with the civil service, and I want to place even the parastatals within the civil service, because some of them are strategic parastatals. They are as important as government departments. What Ruto is doing is what is wrong. To interfere with the civil service. That is wrong. But as far as your own government is concerned, nobody should force you to put somebody in government who doesn't belong to your side.
This is the Kenyan government, if anything. We are all Kenyans. By virtue of being a Kenyan, everybody deserves...
If we believe the elections were free and fair, the same Kenyans have chosen that government. They say we want Ruto to run the government.
Does it mean that they were wrong because you differed during elections? Now you cannot...
No, there's no difference. It's about... Now, an election is a choice between Raila Odinga and William Ruto. Who do you want to put your life for the next 5 years. Whom do you want to run your government for 5 years? People say Ruto. So Ruto must be allowed to run the government.
So if Ruto has said, and he said, these are, by the way, there's this statement that has always been made. I wonder that there are a cabal or rather group of people who wanted to subvert the will of the people. So definitely, this statement kind of refers to the majority. That is, those who voted, because definitely when you talk of the will of Kenyans, there are also the minorities, right? Those who voted who are also Kenyans.
The minority must have their say, just as the majority have their way. So one way of having your way is when you become president, you form government.
And then?
That is now telling Kenyans, you must be very careful when you are choosing government. Because you must know. And I like Gachagua. He's now telling Kenyans, next time you are electing a president, you must know what you are doing. You must be aware of what you are doing. You must know you have given Ruto the mandate to run this country for 5 years. Yeah.
Okay, now let's leave that at that point. But then let me ask you this. By the way, there's been an uproar on the kind of what you've just said here about termination of contracts of people who've been there in the civil service. And you've just mentioned the name of the president. But yesterday, the deputy president, while speaking, said very well that that is his role in at State House. And he said that actually, when he finds that you are up front there and you are not supposed to be there, or rather you did not support them, then what he does is that he brings you back and then takes his guy, puts in front. So that is how things work. Do you think that it is the president who's been behind all this, or it is now the deputy president, just as he affirmed the other day?
This government has only one commander-in-chief. And one man mandated by the constitution to constitute government. That's William Samoei Ruto for now. Not Gachagua.
But Gachagua says he's the one who
does just talking. That's just talking. Yeah. Or in-house. That's your in-house.
And he said, you know,
Kenyans know there's only one man whose signature the constitution recognizes now, and that is William Samoei Kipchirchir Arap Ruto. That signature is recognized by the constitution, and he has the seal of authority of office of the president. Anybody else can talk. It may not even be Gachagua. Even somebody else can say. Yeah.
So you don't believe it's Gachagua behind this?
No, Gachagua is just verbalizing what Ruto wants to be done. It's just verbalizing it. Yeah, these are the things they discuss with him. So Gachagua is the man to say it.
In as much as you're saying that you like the authenticity of Rigathi Gachagua, but a number of guys would call him some sort of a loose cannon who needs actually to tame his mouth. Do you buy that kind of argument?
No. You see, if that's your style, why would it bother you? Just continue with your style. At some point, you might style up. How about if it is necessary? If it is deliberate? Sometimes Moi would let Kariuki Chotara, Nasir from Mombasa, shout things. Then see, watch the reaction. So Ruto could be using Gachagua to test the reactions of Kenyans. Yeah. Or just be Gachagua style. Or sometimes you see when you form government in circumstances such as ours, the deputy president may claim more share than he should have by the constitution. So maybe that's one way of Gachagua carrying around his weight, and even trying to ward off people like Mudavadi.
Don't tell them I'm the man.
I'm the man here. Don't have ideas. Or even telling Ruto, look here, don't you dare. Yeah, I'm in charge also.
What do you make of the perception that this actually creates to the general public and Kenyans at large?
Of course, the style I've said, the Gachagua style, is counterproductive, at least on their side. It breeds resentment. What the Gachagua does is to make people angry, is to raise the timbers, the temperatures of anger. People who are chosen to forget, Gachagua is waking them up. People who feel their election was stolen and have chosen to move on. Gachagua is telling me, you're stupid. Come up. Come, listen to Raila Odinga. Attend those rallies. Yes, that's what Gachagua is telling people. Come, attend those rallies. Yeah.
No, we've seen in the recent past a move by different leaders, especially from Raila Odinga's backyard. We've seen that kind of troop to State House, and I've seen them having meetings with the CSS and they had a meeting at the State House. And actually, one of them, of course, Jack Ranguma, the former governor of Kisumu, of course you remember him. he's actually been given some position there. But then during the elections, definitely these are people who did not believe in Ruto kind of, and perhaps just we saw some sort of a late defection after the results were announced and William Ruto definitely declared the president. Do you think this sits pretty well with Rigathi Gachagua? Does he seem like he has a problem with a number of these people trooping the other side? Because he said very well, like our president who talks and says very well, I do not want some sort of a mongrel kind of government. Let opposition be in opposition, let the government also, those who in government be in government. Do you think Rigathi Gachagua sits well with this kind of move or rather troop of leaders to the status?
If Gachagua is not happy with Ruto inviting strangers, it will not be the first time. Ruto himself was not happy when Uhuru invited what they call election losers, politicians, into government. Because Ruto kept insisting, the only politician in government will be the president and myself, William Ruto. But Uhuru brought in Ngilu, brought in Kazungu Kambi, and a few other politicians. So if Gachagua is doing the same, he's just following Ruto's footsteps. That your deputy may not be happy with you inviting strangers to your government. So if Ruto is the one inviting the defectors and giving them positions, the Jack Ragumas and the rest, and the Gachagua is not happy about it, he's just doing what Ruto did in 2013, yeah.
When we saw a number of Jubilee, or rather Jubilee leaders from central Kenya troop, or rather find their way to the State House, Rigathi Gachagua was there, and he talked pretty well with him. During, let me take you a little bit back during the Ayala kind of elections that we had there. There is, what is his name? The Ayala, Kanini Kega.
Kega.
Yeah, Kanini Kega, definitely. I understand that these people did not actually want to give him that support. But then Rigathi Gachagua came up and marshaled a number of legislators who ensured that they voted for him. And many a number of times, I think one of the most important factors as to why Kanini Kega is behaving the way he's behaving politically right now is because of the support that he got from Rigathi Gachagua. Now, does this portray our deputy president as the tribal hero, as a number of leaders have always called him out? We've had Edwin Sifuna at that time saying, why is it that now, when a number of leaders from these other kind of backgrounds troop to the State House, you have a problem with that, or rather request for work, or rather request for job, you have a problem. But with your own people, you do not have any problem. Is it a tactic that Rigathi Gachagua is using?
You know, Rigathi Gachagua, you must understand Rigathi Gachagua. Rigathi Gachagua is a nobody within the Mount Kenya politics. But a nobody who now wants to claim that space of leadership. So the first thing he must do is to endear himself to the community. And he's doing it so well. Because when I say a nobody, I'm not demeaning the deputy president. I'm just saying Mount Kenya has its own giants. He's not one of them. He's nowhere near the Uhuru Kenyatas and the rest of those people. He's a junior politician.
A greyhound?
Pardon?
Do you call him a greyhound or something?
Not, well, of course, he's a one-time MP. Who knew Gachagua before? His brother was governor and people knew him a bit. And when he was unwell, Rigathi Gachagua was doing a bit of the job for him. Unfortunately, he passed on. And then he became a member of parliament. You cannot compare him to politicians who have been around in Mount Kenya for a long time, who are unknown, who are powerful, who are rich, who are everything. You know, political families like the Kenyatas and the rest. But he now finds himself as a most high-ranking man from the community. And he doesn't want to stop there. He would want to take the community leadership. So what does he do? He chooses to be called tribalist, but in pursuit of what he thinks he wants, which is first to claim community leadership. And thereafter, national leadership. Because Gachagua will go nowhere in 2032, as far as his pursuit for the president is concerned, if he doesn't put the community behind him, united behind him. So you can call him a tribalist, but he knows what he's doing. He's trying to bring the community under his control. And for that reason, he will do some of the things that will portray him as a tribalist. Yeah.
Definitely. So meaning in all this, whatever he calls it, it says, well, these are company with shares and all. Of course, there are those with some sort of few shares here, others have got. So it depends on actually how you invested in this company. That's so he calls. But then now I'm kind of looking at, because there are a number of people from the central Kenya who did not actually support the bid, who did not believe in Ruto at that time. But then I think for Gachagua, anybody from that end seems to be an exception in the so-called shares and alignment of people here.
So long as they are from Mount Kenya.
So long as they're from Mount Kenya.
He wants to assume, to paint the picture of a united Mount Kenya, almost to a man voting for Ruto, which is not true. Because the narrative here is, and they even quote the figures, they say, we voted 43%. In other words, 43% of Ruto's votes are Mount Kenya votes. So what are they trying to communicate? That we are the majority shareholder in this government. You get it? So he may not want to show the community as being fragmented. To that extent, he may not discriminate within that Mount Kenya region, so that they appear to be one unit, all behind the president, in the pursuit for the president in 2022 and also 2027. So he will not plug out one person and say this person is anti-UD, anti-Kenya Kwanza, anti-Ruto. You see? But more importantly, instead of highlighting those people who are not with them, he would want to bring them on fold, the Kanini Kegas, the Sabina Cheges. So his strategy is simple. Within the shortest time possible, say, for example, less than a year, there should be no resentment from the Mount Kenya region. Everybody should be towing one line.
So he wants to establish himself as
the kingpin of Mount Kenya, and a united Mount Kenya, where all opposition voices within the mountain have been silenced.
When the Azimio side kind of tries to talk about some of these things, and they say that you people are like appointing just people from two tribes here and there, and they say, not really. Had it been your side, then I think you would have done the same. Do you think had Raila perhaps ascended to presidency, Yeye and Martha Karua, would they be behaving the same way that...
if Raila had won the president, he wouldn't behave the same way Ruto and Gachagua are behaving in terms of appointment. And for a number of reasons. Top on the reason that Raila is a nationalist. These two are people who are anything but that. They have no proven record of being nationalists. Raila has spoken for the country, paid for it, suffered for it. His record is there. It speaks for itself. And the people who surround Raila, when Raila was prime minister in a coalition Nusumkata government, the people he appointed in the cabinet were not Luos and Luyas, for example. William Ruto was there. There was somebody from the northeastern region, Alemio, I can't remember his name. He appointed people from across the country on his half of government, across the country. Secondly, or thirdly, if you wish, Raila, whenever he has campaigned in this country from 2007, he has had support from across the country. Across the country. So that in 2007, I think, apart from Mount Kenya region, he had the whole country. Kibaki was nowhere. Kibaki was just contained within Mount Kenya. Okay? So if Raila's campaigns, even when you look at the political map, August 2022, the whole country was blue. The whole country was blue. The entire whole country was blue. Where did you find UDA in beyond 50%? So the color would represent anything beyond 50%. Just look at the map, it was blue. So even if Raila wanted to be Luo, it was not going to be possible because Azimio was a formation that cut across the entire country. So there's no way Raila will be having the same problem that Ruto has of appointing 90% Kalenjin and Gikuyus. Because Raila, his appeal and his reach and his formation from 2007. In fact, 2007, it was 1 versus 40. It's also for Raila, this idea of putting just 1 or 2 communities in government would be neither here nor there. It would not be possible.
No. Let me ask you, with this kind of strategy that Rigathi Gachagua is having, of course, endearing himself to, wanting to establish himself as the Kikuyu kingpin, and definitely endearing himself to the Kalenjins, definitely. Do you think this is kind of the strategy that he wants to use to ensure that he gets it right in 2032?
It's possible that he wants, first of all, like I've said, to get Kikuyu leadership, and thereafter then cement his relationship with the Kalenjin, and slide into White House, into State House in 2032. That is his strategy, certainly. The question you must ask whether it will work. It could work. But because of the second thing I want to say, it may not work and it should not work.
What is that you want to say?
And the idea is, I've said this repeatedly, if you paint the picture of a Kikuyu Kalenjin leadership in this country, you are simply setting up the country for failure because it is not sustainable. It has never worked anywhere. It will not work in this country. It has led to disaster in many countries. And the consequences are always too bad even to contemplate. So it is in the interest of this country, that Kenya should appear, should be felt to be a Kenya for all Kenyans. And there's no better way for that to happen than for other tribes, other than the Kikuyu and the Kalenjin, to be president. And I've always told the Kikuyu, especially the Kikuyu, and to some extent the Kalenjin, it is in the interest of the Kikuyu in this country that somebody else becomes president other than a Kikuyu and the Kalenjin. Because even purely from a population point of view and demographics of, whether you like it or not, with the changes in politicking and electioneering and the technology, there is going to come a time when, one, you will not steal an election. It will not be possible. Okay? Secondly, the Kamba, the Luya, the Luo, and the Red are breeding. Let me use the word breeding so that the point may come out. At a point in not so distant future, the Kikuyu will be the 4th, 5th largest tribe in the country. Because right now, as I speak, the Luya must be the largest tribe in the country. You know, the next census I hear they have now changed about censoring. It will be the Luya Sublet. And the Kambas are moving at a speed you cannot say. Other communities are there. The Kisis are now, they were a minority. Now they are among the top 5 or so. A time will come in this country when the Kikuyus will be number 4 or 5. And other communities will take over leadership. Unlike in Zimbabwe, where because the Shona, the Ndebele had harassed the Shona over the years in the Ndebele wars, and doing the unthinkable, because when the Ndebele people one was against the Shona, they took not just virgins, as it was the practice, and the animals and other things. They took even married women. And that's why Mugabe was able to rule for so long and beat anybody, because those others were trying to come from the Ndebele, like in Nkomo and the rest. You can't. So, a time may come in this country when the Kikuyus will regret that they ever tried to lord it over other Kenyans. It is in their own interest. And because they are scattered across the country, and they have interest in business across the country, it is in their interest to live peacefully with other Kenyans. The better beginning point is where people like Charles Njojo had seen Kina SK Macharia. Let us, even if you are going to win, we used to play a game of drafts, a poor man's chess. Somebody has come, you are passing time on a Sunday. You beat him. You see this game will end because you'll walk away. You pretend you have lost. You let him beat you once. This is what the Kikuyus must do. This is what people have done like in Ghana. This is what we saw up here in Ethiopia. Sometimes you let somebody else take over so that the game continues, so that everybody feels this Kenya belongs to all of us. It is the interest. But then they are short term. There would have been no better thing for the Kalenjin and the Kikuyu in 2022, even 2013, than to have left Raila be president even once. By now, all those people will be gunning for the presidency.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, and there you have it from Professor Herman Manyora. But of course, we are still here on the ground waiting to see what will actually happen. Our plea to the leadership of this country is that let them come to the realization that we are one country, one nation, and this nation belongs to all of us. We already passed the electioneering period. Every Kenyan right now definitely expects that we'll focus on the most important things, and we still encourage the government to do things that will actually reflect therein to create national unity in the country. Well, do not fail to tune in to our programs coming here with, of course, Richard Mwenja, Jedel Kabiro, and of course Waris Kimathi on the other side of Let's Talk Love with Professor Herman Manyora. Till we have this conversation again, have yourself a very lovely day. My name is Evans Okinyi.